and welcome to my presentation for the first unit of the Artificial Intelligence unit. And we're going to look at what is artificial intelligence. Okay, so let's start this general discussion about artificial intelligence, or AI, in the most simplest of terms. It's hard in our modern society to not even have heard of the impact of artificial intelligence, or AI. This might include both positive and negative connotations around the term, and you might not even have an idea what the term means. So instead of thinking of AI as some futuristic robot that's coming to take everyone's job, AI doesn't really announce itself. It comes up and works quietly in the background on common tasks every day, like organizing the photos on your phone without you asking it to do that, to make movie suggestions while you're on Netflix, to reroute your GPS in your car, and suggest words when they pop up automatically doing searches on the internet. Maybe one way to look at AI is to use an analogy. So imagine you're a manager at a large sales company and you get a new intern named Joe. She's fresh out of school, she's very eager, and during the job interview, you realize that Joe is really good at spotting patterns. You don't give her a job manual with a lot of instructions or rules to follow. Instead, you tell Joe, here's all the customer information for our company. Go through it and learn who the best customers are. Joe gets to work. Joe goes through receipts, through purchase records. She takes notes. She works through the night. She never sleeps. She never eats. She never takes a break. And she slowly starts to notice some patterns. Customers who shop on Friday afternoons tend to spend more money. Customers who buy the store's most popular item almost always come back for the matching accessory. And if a customer hasn't bought anything in 3 months, they probably won't be back. At first, Joe's observations are pretty raw, pretty rough, and many of them are not accurate. However, over time, Joe learns from every mistake. She looks at more examples. She adjusts her observations. She keeps getting better and better at making predictions. After a few months, given a new customer, Joe can, with decent accuracy, predict whether this customer will buy again, what they might want, when they will show up. Joe has made herself an invaluable employee for productivity for our company. Here's the plot twist: Joe is artificial intelligence. All the customer information is the training data Joe received. Joe is getting better over time, is what's called machine learning. And Joe's predictions are the outputs that the AI is giving us. With AI as a companion tool, the company becomes more and more productive. So AI can be thought of not as a replacement of human thinking, but a huge enhancement to human thinking. When calculators were first invented, people thought that humans would never do math again, but the calculator enhanced our ability to do math. So maybe AI is a calculator for human ideas. Whether it was the steam engine or the printing press or electricity or automobiles, the calculator, the computer, and now AI, society learns to adapt to these new tools. So let's move now into some definitions. What is artificial intelligence? So the acronym AI, or artificial intelligence, is widely used now in a big part of our society. Simply put, artificial intelligence attempts to coax a machine, typically a computer, to behave ways humans judge to be intelligent. That's a quote from John McCarthy, a computer scientist in 1950. To think that AI, though, is one thing would be a mistake. AI is an entire field of study, just like physics is a field of study, or chemistry, that encompasses many concepts, some older, some more new and cutting edge. But it simulates, hence the term artificial, the human brain's ability to use heuristics, or thinking, or intelligence. So the term heuristic is just a method, a shortcut, a quick way that humans do decision making or problem solving. Humans use heuristics every day to navigate the world. For example, you learn not to touch a hot stove because it would burn you, which you learn from many past experiences of touching hot items, and that can cause pain. For machines, they're built, or in the case of computers, programmed to use a type of heuristics to follow a set of instructions like a recipe to perform tasks. So AI tries to get the machines, or specifically the computers, to make quick decisions and to solve problems in a way similar to the way that humans do. But theoretically, as a machine, they can do it better and faster than us. We are now seeing the use of artificial intelligence all through our lives, from website searches like Google to our phones to ChatGPT to smart cars to air traffic control. Literally anywhere there's information, anywhere there's decision making, and anywhere there's problem solving, AI is starting to appear. So now let's get our definitions a little more specific within some AI terminology. So we'll start with some of these definitions of terms in the context of the discussion of AI that we'll use throughout this course. So obviously the term artificial, this term is used because humans create AI using machines and programming computers. And it's not a natural thing like a biological brain. Intelligence is a word that humans use to summarize our human experience of using our brains, sometimes also simplified as thinking. But in this context, it's going to refer to the ability to learn new ideas, adapt to new information, apply that knowledge, solve problems, and make decisions using heuristics. The next term would be to learn, which is when new information, or in the case of computers, new data, comes in as an input, and we remember it and are able to understand and eventually apply it. And then reason is a term we use that is where remembered or learned data is used to help make sense of new data that we've not encountered before. All right, another term we want to look at is patterns. These are the connections between the data formed through reason, both known data and making new connections to the new data that we haven't seen before. And prediction or predict is the ability to extrapolate the new data, create data from the patterns and the learned and remembered data. And problem solving is the ability to take the remembered data that was learned, incorporate the new data through patterns, solve problems expressed in the data, including identifying the problem, examining causes of the problem, defining steps for a solution and the actions for the solution, and then implementing the solution. That could be a definition of problem solving. And then finally, the term model. Model is a term that we use to describe a system or a process or a technique used to simulate or imitate another object. For example, a map is a model of the Earth. These basic terms will lead to our next sections on more AI specific terms, terms that you've heard like machine learning or deep learning or generative model or large language model or neural network or even ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, etc. All those AI terms will become under the context of some of the already previously defined terms. All right, so now let's make a comparison. Let's compare human intelligence with artificial intelligence. So we'll circle back and expand our definitions out to make some comparisons. Intelligence, in general, is the broad capacity to acquire information, learn from experience, apply that knowledge and solve problems or adapt to new environments. Essentially, intelligence is a toolkit to process inputs and produce effective outcomes or outputs in a variety of contexts. With human intelligence, this is a specialized high-level expression of this capacity of intelligence, distinguished by our own human unique abilities for abstract reasoning and self-awareness and complex language and the creation of our human culture. We don't just solve problems, we reflect on our own thoughts, shape the world through imagination and symbolic logic. Whereas artificial intelligence is the science of creating machines and software capable of mimicking and augmenting that human cognitive functions like learning, like reasoning, and like perception. It relies on algorithms and massive data sets to solve these problems and make decisions that would otherwise require the biological human intelligence. So the mechanics are also different, the way they work. Humans, it's biology, it's chemistry. We use about 86 billion neurons in our brain and about 20 watts of electricity, about the power of a dim light bulb. I'm not sure what that says about human intelligence. Whereas AI, computers, they use metal, they use wiring, they use electricity, they use massive data centers and megawatts of power to run. And the learning styles are also different. Humans use heuristics from small data sets and experience, trial and error. We adapt to new situations through our social interactions and our learning. Whereas AI is stochastic learning. It's statistical gradient descent. It's massive data sets using deep learning, thousands and millions of examples, identifying statistical patterns. Rather than true understanding, it's math and statistics. So let's look at the key features of human intelligence. Humans have emotions and we have empathy. We have moral reasoning. We have creativity and imagination. We have general problem solving, and we transfer our learning across the different domains of our human brains. The key features of artificial intelligence is recognizing things, recognizing words, recognizing patterns, recognizing visuals like faces, etc., translating languages and recommending content, and autonomous actions like self-driving cars, and mimicking and predicting the responses that humans want. These are features of artificial intelligence. Let's look at the strengths of human intelligence. The strengths we have as humans are that creativity, those ethics, that empathy, the reasoning using common sense, and adapting to unfamiliar situations. Whereas the strengths of artificial intelligence are speed and processing massive amounts of data and not getting tired, no mental or physical fatigue, and high consistency and pattern detection at large scales. The limitations of artificial intelligence is that it does not truly understand meaning. And it's not self aware like humans. It does not have true emotion. It only imitates human emotion. It has no true creativity. It only compiles things from things that humans have already created. It can reflect on biases. It has those biases that it learns from its own data, and it struggles outside the scope of what it's been trained on. Whereas with human intelligence, we also have some limits. We emotionally base our decision making sometimes, and it biases our decision making. We have limited human memory. We are slower at calculations, and we can suffer both mental and physical fatigue. So there are strengths and there are limitations to both human and artificial intelligence. So now, as we wrap up today, let's look at the core concepts of artificial intelligence. Now that we've established that it's this field of study that focuses on human program models of reasoning heuristics similar to the human brain, to learn from existing data, take in new data, adapt, make decisions, problem solve, and extrapolate that new data. If AI is a large field of study within artificial intelligence, we have the subfield of machine learning. It's a subfield of AI, similar to how, say, thermodynamics is a subfield of physics. Within machine learning, we have the subset of of deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning and therefore a subset of artificial intelligence. And then as well, within deep learning uses something called neural networks. They're used by deep learning and thus another subset of deep learning, a subset of machine learning, and a subset of artificial intelligence. And in this course, we're going to study all of this. If we go a little more in depth as well, within deep learning, we have what are called models of implementation. So sometimes you hear about AI models. There are discriminative models, and we will examine those. There are generative models. We will examine those. And there are what are called large language models, or LLMs. And existing systems you might know, like Gemini and ChatGPT, those generally fall under the intersection between generative and large language models. But in this unit and in this course, we're going to take a much deeper examination of all of this. Another important concept, the one of the neural network, We will learn about that as well. But basically, a neural network is a machine learning system and a deep learning system inspired by the human brain that consists of interconnected artificial neurons called nodes or perceptrons that are arranged in layers. But again, we're going to take a much deeper dive into this later in the course. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you learned a lot from this one, and we'll see you next time.